Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So the nature of politics, as I'm sure you all know, is kind of controlled opposition nonsense. If you're a Republican, people want you to magically pretend that the Republican Party magically is the good guy, right? And if you're Democratic, then the Democrat. And both of them are controlled opposition, and at times they show their kind of very evil, ugly, guilty face, okay, in various issues. With the left, in the more obvious forms, you see, the gender neutral bathrooms, the child sex changes. You see things like this that are clearly out of line. Trannies in sports, what have you. No offense to anybody. On the right, you see, the Trump fans. You see the white supremacy. You see the conservatism. On both sides, they're like centrists in a sense, okay? And they're supporting the central committee, the governing class, okay? The central stakeholders. And so it is with the Jewish people's agenda for the Jewish people, okay? I was just watching a video by a rabbi, this gentleman saying that, he didn't, basically it was propaganda, he was lying and so on and so forth, and he was using the Jewish people as if they're one unit. And you see, before all this kind of anti-Semitism talk really started, okay, to this degree, Jews were already very clannish. And they would cite being persecuted in Europe and so on and so forth in World War II, and things that happened before that, okay, as why. But they were very clannish, okay? And so when they entered the political paradigm in more recent years, okay, they've been there for the whole time. When they seemed to have entered out of nowhere, right? Because all of a sudden you see these Jews all over politics, okay, they were just either controlled opposition of sorts, right? Or they're more openly evil, okay? If you're in California, you probably think Bibi Netanyahu, you probably believe he's evil. And you probably believe the liberal Jews like Amy Goodman and Noam Chomsky and what have you, maybe the Jews of old like Gloria Steinem, okay? You probably believe that they're somewhat good, okay? And if you're really paying attention, and a lot of people are, you probably believe that they're controlled opposition, okay? They say a lot of interesting stuff, so on and so forth, but that's the bottom line. Now, what I'm arguing is not just what people should do to please God. In the case of the Jews, it's arguing what is best for the Jewish people. Okay? What is best for them is to serve God, right? It's to separate yourself from the evil identity that is being put upon you by the political paradigm. So whether you're white, black, whatever, okay, Jewish, whatever, that paradigm's bad for you, right? I used to talk about, in terms of black people, there's the house black, and there's the field black, and then there's the overseer, and then there's the marooner, and then there's the top martial artist. So the house black is like the worst. The overseer is like the second worst, in some ways the first worst, right? Because he kind of has a whip and so on and so forth. The other guy's really trying hard to assimilate to the white oppressor culture in the plantation paradigm, okay? Now the field black is not perfect. He's still working for the master. The marooner tries to get away. He realizes that trying to escape is more important than trying to save your skin. So he's willing to die trying to escape, and that's the smart thing to do. And of the marooners, okay, of the people who, like me, who decide that they're not going to assimilate as a house one or field one or overseer or anything else, the top martial artist, which is me, is the most respectable one. And so it is with Jewish culture. We just fail to see, or there fails to be a Jewish person who leaves the construct, okay? So the ones who are kind of hyper-conservative, reinforcing the, white Jewish and LGBT supremacy, they're the most guilty, right? And then the house one, the one who kisses their butt, is the second most guilty, and some of them are Democrats. It gets a little confusing. The overseer, okay, is the next most guilty, right? He's using brute force because he doesn't know any better. He's not as good as kissing ass as the house one, and he didn't get that cushy position, so he's not as guilty of having a cushy position while this plays out, okay, for the wrong reasons, mind you, for the wrong reasons, ill-gotten gains, what have you. Then the field Jew, the poor Jewish gentleman from California, works construction, works at McDonald's, what have you, often very friendly. He's less guilty than the central committee. He's less guilty than the house one. He's less guilty than the overseer. But he didn't leave the paradigm, okay? You can have a job and have left the paradigm, but they're probably going to fire you, but who knows? The one who does what Christ as a character in the story tells you to do. Pick up your cross and follow him. And no servant can be greater. If they killed him, they'll kill you, sort of thing, right? So the marooner, the guy who says, hey, if you Jews are going to be like this, I want nothing to do with that identity. And keep in mind, I might very well be part Jewish, so in a sense, I am that as well. I'm a black marooner, and I'm a mulatto marooner, and I might be mixed with white Jewish. That's a more controversial and complex issue, of semantics and political correctness and what is the reality and so on and so forth. Okay? And so there we have it, right? I mean, the top martial artist is not going to be a Jew, right? Because, it's just how it is, right? The most vicious animal of the jungle is not going to be, bunny rabbit, a turtle, pick something. It's how it is. No offense. I mean, it just, some people, quite often I like people who are adorable more than people who are vicious, right? So it's not as simple as, oh no, you're insulting us. Hey, count your blessings, look at the pros and cons, be the best you can be. The righteous person is greater than a brute force knucklehead. Okay, be the best you can be. So what I believe is best for the Jewish people is to rally around me and to obey God through me. And they have found me guilty as a group, and certainly there's individual dissenters, I'm sure, but they haven't left that triangle of oppression, that central committee, house, field paradigm. They haven't become a marooner, someone who leaves the Jewish controlled prison plantation paradigm, control, psychological state of, the psychology of being controlled by the oppressor as either the central committee person, the house one, the field one. Okay, so that's that central triangle. And of course, there's more positions that there's the overseer and so on and so forth. Okay. So if you have any questions, put in the comments. I know it might be a little bit confusing at times, but you should pretty much have a good idea of what I'm saying at this point. Okay. So they are persecuting me. So when I say to the Jews out there who are more reasonable than the others, I'm being persecuted, okay, by whites, Jews, and LGBT rich people who are giving orders to a massive network and everyone's kissing their ass and doing what they say but me and so on and so forth. Okay, partially for arguing what is best for the Jewish people, and they have no viable counter-argument. So I say to you all, who's the anti-Semite? The one who wants you to worship the devil and persecute the most righteous person that ever lived? The one who wants you stuck in their prison psychology, sexually controlled? Or the one who wants you to worship God, who they have no viable counter-argument for in regards to how to do that? The one who wants you to be morally precise. The one who's actually trying to get you to heaven instead of pretending you go to heaven, so you take this trickle-down blood money that they have to offer you, okay? And then you buy some new car that looks kind of funny. You buy a house in a gentrified city like San Francisco so you can blend in with a bunch of vampires, so to speak, right? Figuratively speaking, and pretend that you're living a decent life. So you can breed kids who are doomed to be the mental slaves of horrible people. Who is the anti-Semite? The righteous one? Or they who are much worse than you think? So now that we are at this key turning point in human history, all of mankind must choose. The Jews as well must choose. Life is short. Life is hard. And they've made it so that all pleasure that you can attain outside the divine order is evil. If you won't think in terms of two human beings disagreeing, and one being right, which is me, and the other being wrong, then think of me as a sort of black-skinned Jew whose family is a mix between Africans who are morally precise and the most virtuous Jewish women. Virtue, righteousness, directing you the way of righteousness on the path of justice, versus the wicked who want you to tap into your emotions and to not use your head. I know this decision can be difficult for people, but in terms of logic, it is straightforward. Straight is the way for the Lord, the path of the prudent, the path of the disciplined, the path of the righteous, the path of the wise. I urge you to do what is right. I urge you to make the right call here. Either way, I'm prepared to go forward by myself. I'm ready to meet my Maker at any time. I'm ready to die for morally precise love from God. Are the opposition groups able to say the same thing in truth?